Hey guys, what's going on? Druzy here, back again with another South Park Phone Destroyer video and a series that many of you enjoy thoroughly, of course, the monthly meta. And it's been a few months since I've done the monthly meta. I think it's been about 3 months since I've done it. I've been a little lazy, and at the same time, I really don't feel like the meta has shifted dramatically in a direction that was warranted for a monthly meta. But of course, the year of 2020 is pretty much almost done. The month of December is almost done as well. There's only a couple of days left, but I felt I needed to wait until the Woodland Critters came out, got some play with them before I put them directly on this meta. So, as always, you guys will debate me on these monthly metas. And of course, always put that in the comment section down below. But we're going to start with adventure, work our way through, and then I will say at the end, per usual, what I think is the best themes overall in the meta as a whole. So let's just go ahead, start with adventure real quick. Okay, so here we go, looking at the adventure theme. I have made some changes to this theme, as the gold brackets generally are cards that have either received balance changes, not all of them are always the ones that have received balance changes, or cards that I have changed within the structure of the meta from previous metas. So, as you can see here with adventure, there's only 5 cards I feel are the top tier of this meta right now, and those are the ones in the G section. I have put a gold bracket on Thunderbird. I think Thunderbird is slipping as far as its value is concerned. And I don't think it's necessarily because the card is bad or that anything has changed within the card with balance changes or anything like that. You just don't see it much in the game, really hardly at all. I've tried it even with my Adventure Locked account in mid-silver, around 50, about 5,000 ELO and stuff like that. And Thunderbird just really doesn't seem to have the value that you would hope that it would have, given its cost and given that it's a flying drone and whatnot, and it does basically direct damage, and it basically functions as a headhunter in a way and stuff like that. It's just not that great of a card right now. I still have it in A tier because I still think it has potential to be very strong if left alone. Like, it can be dangerous at times, but I feel like a lot of people, especially in Legendary Arena, play Ink and Craig. Oftentimes, especially, I mean, if you play Adventure, you have to play Ink and Craig if you're in Legendary Arena, and because of that, Thunderbird's just going to get wiped out really easily. He doesn't have the health sustain to survive a lot of some of these other cards, or like Satan would be cast and probably just wipe it out real quick. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways to really deal with it, so I feel like it's kind of slipping down. So I've kept it in A, but it might realistically more be a B tier card in reality. And I moved Stand of Many Moons. He was in G tier. I moved him to A. Now, again, nothing has changed with Psalm completely, but he's so easily dealt with. He's usually a card that most people cancel right away. He still has insane value with his charge ability, assuming he's able to get it off once or even multiple times. Pairing it with something like Santa obviously works very well. Again, I don't think Psalm's necessarily like a terrible legendary card. I think it's decently well balanced and in an okay position. I just don't feel like it's as strong as it once was to me, but it's still a good card, so it's definitely near the top for the overall theme. But I have shifted it to A, which some of you may disagree with, and that's perfectly fine. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions on these kind of things. So Shaman Token, I've moved from C to B. He did receive a buff. It wasn't huge, but it was enough warranted for me that he's much better. He was better than he was before. I wouldn't say much better. He is better than he was prior. So he's, to me, a B tier card. Aerostorm, I did have an A tier. I've moved it down to B. And the main reason is you hardly see Aerostorm at all anymore. Aerostorm doesn't feel as epic as it once did. The scaling as far as the damage potential isn't really that big, even from 3 to 5. I think it's only about 60 or 70 some damage. You know, and granted, I get it attacks everything on screen. But with a lot of these decks now, a lot of these decks are more lean towards higher health kind of cards are put around them, more tankier style cards, to where Aerostorm really has lost some value and needs some scaling adjustment at some point. And until Red Lynx does that, it's just not as great as it once was. I feel like Fireball has a lot more value to me than Aerostorm does right now within the meta, so that's why I've moved it down. Barrel Douglas wasn't B tier. I moved it down to C. Barrel Douglas might be the worst Douglas in the game now. I mean, it and Prophet Douglas are pretty bad right now in Mystical theme, but I don't know. Barrel, you don't see it at all in Legend Arena and just doesn't seem to be that good right now, so I have moved it down to C. So that is all the adjustments for Adventure. Let us shift our gears now to Sci-Fi. Alright guys, looking at Sci-Fi, this is the one theme that to me didn't have much, if really any, change whatsoever for the most part. The only change, there was a balance adjustment for Marine Craig within the last few months, and it has been, I've moved him from C to B tier because of the change, so he does a lot more damage with his poison. It has a bigger radius as far as what enemies it hits with as well with the poison, so I think Marine Craig's in a little bit better spot, but I don't think he's by any means meta changing, and you haven't seen a huge adjustment with him within the meta. Maybe in lower arenas like Bronze and maybe in Silver Shield, but in Legendary Arena you hardly see him at all. As far as like a consistent used card within the sci-fi theme, but I feel like the G tier is still pretty consistent, and A tier pretty consistent right now within the meta for sci-fi and stuff like that. So I haven't really seen any drastic changes to me with sci-fi as a whole. It's still a strong theme overall. It's one of the top themes in the game, in my opinion. And I mean, other than really Marine Craig, I don't recall any major changes that have happened in the last few months. I know Ice Sniper Wendy, she's in C tier still. I don't think she's got that great of value, but she did receive a balance changes sometime this year. So I mean, there's been some adjustments within this theme, but nothing drastically overpowered. The best one to me was Sizzler Stewart's buff that he received a few months ago, but outside of that, I haven't really seen anything super spectacular from this theme, at least not here towards the end of the year. So that's it for sci-fi. Let's just quickly shift to mystical now. All right, looking quickly at the mystical theme, I put a gold bracket around Dar. Now, Dar to me is still easily one of the top 5 cards in this entire game, if not top 3, probably realistically. I've gold bracketed her because I can almost guarantee you, based on what we saw in the Woodland Critters video and stuff like that, that most likely this card will be adjusted. It's just a matter of when and what adjustment will be made. Whether it's a energy shift from 3 to 4, whether it's a change within what you can summon back, things like that, yada yada yada. I do think Dar will receive an adjustment of some kind here in January to start 2021. I just don't know what it's going to be, and we'll just have to wait and see what Red Lynx does. But she's gold bracketed because it's just an inevitability that she will receive some sort of nerf. It's just to what degree and what effect it will have on her. I still think even if she went to 4 energy, she'd still be a valuable card, and at worst case, she'd go to A tier in my opinion. Purify has received a number of pretty solid buffs. It wasn't B tier. I moved it up to A tier. Purify and Powerbind both are in pretty good spots for 2-cost spells. And I think they're back to almost the strength that they were when they were 1-cost spells. Obviously, they're a little bit different now as far as what they can do versus back then, but I still think they are very strong and some of the stronger spells in the game right now. Jesus is still in B tier. I have not adjusted him since recent patches. He hasn't really received any buffs, honestly, in the last couple of months. But I think Jesus is flirting with A tier. I think Jesus is actually in a much better spot and not as crappy as I once thought. I do think Jesus is fairly good. He works really well with Woodland Critters. He's been really fun, and I did do a Woodland Critters video on how to play Woodland Critters, and I really thought Jesus did a phenomenal job of helping Woodland Critters be really good. So I really like that Jesus kind of is a niche card that works well with some other cards, and I've seen him played a little bit more in Legendary Arena, even when he's not a card within an event. So I think Jesus has seen a little bit more of a resurgence lately. And then Friar Jimmy is also gold bracketed. He's in C tier. He stays in C tier. He received a buff at one point. He's still bad. I really don't think he's that good. He's better for Team Wars, and he's better for things like that, or maybe for Chaos Mode. But for ladder, in all honesty, he still sucks, and he's still the worst Jimmy right now. So I would keep him in C. I wouldn't move him anywhere. I mean, he'd be better for you in like Bronze, but beyond Bronze, you should not play him at all. That's just the reality of it. He's still kind of crappy. So that's kind of it. All right, guys, looking at fantasy, not a ton of adjustments here for myself. I have moved Sorceress Leanne from A to G tier. Sorceress Leanne is in a really good spot right now, especially because of Dar. She's being used a lot more. If you play her well enough with Dar, you can potentially get a lot of cancellation value with her and things like that. So Sorceress Leanne is in a really good spot right now for her value, her cost, what she can provide for you. Yes, she is a risk card because obviously her Death Wish could affect your own units, so play her wisely. But if you play her well enough, she can be devastating and really kind of frustrate your strategies as a whole, in all honesty. Grand Wizard Cartman is an A tier, but Grand Wizard Cartman is high value cost card. He's high risk, very minimal reward, in my opinion, at 6 energy, and the fact that there's so much potential to cancel him. And yeah, I mean, granted, his charge ability can do some pretty decent chip damage, can be fairly effective if used right, but he's just so easy to deal with. The meta is so focused on very quick, hard, take a bar and then just play defensively to hold off, or just get a quick 2 bars and then just win the match, basically. So Grand Wizard Cartman, the big old pushy tank meta that was pretty apparent in May and even in June, has kind of gone to the wayside in this game, and just tanks just aren't as powerful as they once were. A lot of people just use tanky style fighters more so than just tanks as a whole. I mean, Zen Cartman still sees rapid use because of his low cost and his high health potential, as well as his distraction. So, I mean, there are still some tanks playing the game. I still see Slave used a decent amount. That's why he's still in G tier. But I just think Grand Wizard Cartman and Manbear Pig are slowly kind of shifting out of the meta for the last few months, and for a variety of different reasons. So I just feel like Grand Wizard Cartman's not that great. And with the Inuit Kenny buff, it's just even easier to kill him, much easier now. With things like Rogue Token in B tier, I think he's flirting with A. I think it even at times, Rogue Token, even though he's received no changes whatsoever, since that I can even remember, other than the epic buff a long time ago, I think he and Labar Jimmy are almost at the same level. Now, Labar Jimmy, to me, still is deservingly an A. He's still a nice common card with all that potential and stuff like that, especially with Dar. You can use him multiple times, which you can do the same thing with Rogue Token. But with Labar Jimmy, you know, you're getting the entire board, versus with Rogue Token, you're only getting a specific aura area from his Warcry and things like that. But I feel like Rogue Token is moving up a little bit. I still view him in B, and I still think he has potential there, and he's still not the weakest card by any stretch in this theme and whatnot. But I still think that Rogue Token could potentially be an A tier card in the future here, just because I feel like his value is going up a little bit. But that's going to do it for fantasy, guys. Let's shift our focus now to superheroes. As I'm looking at superheroes, they have received 2 new cards since I have done this monthly meta, which are Mary Jane Randy and Alternate Human Kite. I put Mary Jane Randy in G tier. Mary Jane Randy, to me, might be the best Randy overall. His card scaling is phenomenal. His plants are a huge, awesome distraction. His basic attack is devastating for an epic card. He's a hybrid of Pocahontas Randy and Sixth Element Randy all wrapped into one. Like, he's got the basic attack strength of a legendary card, the distraction and health more of an aligned with his other epic cards, but he feels like he's flirting with the legendary like value, but he's just not quite there yet. I feel like Red Links really made him probably a little too strong to the point where Mary Jane Randy will probably get nerfed here. That'll probably be an inevitability. Whether or not it's in January, I feel like in the first quarter of 2021, you will probably see Mary Jane Randy nerf. Because even at level 4, he's viable in Legendary Ladder. Even at 8k, that's something that all the other Randys need to be at least 5, in my opinion, to be valuable. But Mary Jane Randy, I've been playing him at level 4, and he's been valuable as a level 5 is. So most likely he will be tweaked at some point. Not that I want that to happen, I'm just saying it's probably going to. Alternate Human Kite, I have him in A. A lot of people don't like this card. I get it, he's a defensive-minded card, but if you play him right with the other defensive cards, especially within this theme, you look at it, to me, I would say that Super Craig is fairly defensive. He has that AoE attack, but primarily he's trying to, he's got a slight knockback as well. He's just going to be that, defensive, I wouldn't say juggernaut, but he's a very defensive, mild defensive-minded card. Lava, of course, is defensive-minded. I would put even General Disarray as the defensive-minded card. The fact that he's going to place that lava in a position that's going to hopefully benefit you, then he's going to chip away at it. Mary Jane Randy has defensive capabilities with the distractions of his plants. You could also say that Chompers is defensive-minded. Toolshed that can place Chompers is defensive-minded in a way. Even Professor Chaos with a stun and a AoE kind of little cone burst attack. There's a lot of defensive cards in this theme. Wonder Tweak. The list goes on and on. So, because of all that, Super Fart. Oh my god, why am I missing all these cards? To say that this is one of the most defensive-minded themes in the game, okay? Hands down, to me. Second to Fantasy, or Fantasy would be second. But because of all of that, like, you've got to play him in that mindset of being defensive-minded. There was a lot of times in this recent event with the Woodland Critters, I really liked having Alternate Human Kite in that deck at level 6, pushing back units, kind of resetting. It's not only just pushing them back and you pushing him back, it's also you're resetting sometimes what they target. So you're helping yourself almost double time on the defensive capabilities, because oftentimes they're going to retarget on who, maybe to a unit you would rather them attack, whether it's maybe another tank card, whatever the case is, to where Alternate Human Kite plus his scaling for his attack and his health are actually pretty solid for a rare card in this theme. And usually as a whole, superheroes has kind of been that way for the most part. So I really kind of like this card. I think this card is undervalued to a lot of people. It's not as maybe as sexy as some of the other cards within this theme as far as the value it can provide, but the value is still there. It is if you use them right. And I feel like in my last stream that I did before I made this video, I feel like there were a lot of times where I could prove the value of this card, and I feel like people just need to give it a better shot. And this might be the most debated card that I'm putting as far as rank, and maybe not, maybe there'll be other ones, but I really think this card is undervalued and is stronger than people give it credit for. So I'm putting it an A for me, and you guys can just put it wherever you think he deserves. Some of you probably think he deserves to be in C, and that is not the case at all. But yeah, I'm gonna stop talking about alternate humankind, and we're just gonna move on to neutral now for this tier list. All right, guys, looking at neutral, they have received a bunch of new cards. In fact, well, 5 actually. In fact, since I've done a monthly meta, we've received 4 Goth Kids and Woodland Critters as well. I have moved Mackie from A to G. Mackie's buff was huge. It was really good that he received a few months ago and has made him significantly stronger. Henrietta is the 4th legendary in this theme and the best Goth Kid hands down, in my opinion. Her ability is very good and it's very helpful. Some would debate with Furkle. I have Furkle in B tier, and some people would debate Furkle in B tier because Furkle's base stats are terrible. That's a fact. He's a common card. He's not supposed to be amazing, but his value, his Death Wish is still good, especially paired with Henrietta. The fact that he can just constantly, well, not constantly, but very repetitively can give that buff every time he sacrifices. Death Wish still has value there. That's why he's in B tier. Michael, flirting a bit with A. He's the second best Goth Kid, hands down, with what he provides with them not being able to do spells against your Goth Kids and things like that is very undervalued. I think Michael has pretty decent scaling as well. Maybe he needs a slight bit more health and then he'd be a little bit better. Plus, I mean, you think about it, you could pair it with Mackie or a variety of other cards and make him that much stronger. Woodland Critters is in B tier. I really like this card. Woodland Critters is a fun card to play, but as you saw in the video that I made about Woodland Critters and how to play them, there is a lot of cards that you kind of really need to synergize with this card to make it as strong as you can, but I think there is a ton of value. This is a snowball style card that can really dominate. It's flirting with A to some degree, but I think it still needs a lot of wiggle room and a lot of real support. The Mystical pairs super duper well with Woodland Critters for obvious reasons, and I discussed in more detail in that video, but I do like Woodland Critters a lot. I don't think they're a terrible card, but they are a snowball card that needs some help, which you could debate with. Every card is that way almost, and because of that, that's why they're in B tier right now. For Officer Barbrady and Mayor McDaniels, both those cards have received buffs. That's why they're gold bracketed, and I have moved them both up from CT to B. I think they're in a little bit better spot. I don't think they're overwhelmingly overpowered or anything like that, but I think they are better cards overall. That's why I moved them up a tier. And Pete is kind of weak to me. Pete doesn't feel epic to me. He will receive, I guarantee you, within the next few months, he will receive some kind of buff. He's going to need to. I don't feel like his health, his healing that he does with that basic attack and his ability, I don't think it really works to the level it's supposed to. Maybe it's just me. But I just don't feel like Pete feels like an epic card. He feels more like a common card sometimes. I don't know. His scaling is not great, and I just don't feel like his ability is working right. Maybe, I don't know. There's just something wrong with Pete. I don't 100% know what it is, but I think like he needs a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of work. He's not the worst card in this theme. That would be classy, but he's not great right now, and I think he needs some slight adjustment. So that's going to do it with all these theme breakdowns. Now let's talk real quick about what I think the best theme in the game is right now. All right, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think there's been any change as far as what I think the best theme in the current meta is from my last video about this. I still think Mystical is the dominant theme. They are the best theme to pair with any other adjacent theme as well. They're just the strongest theme right now in the game, hands down. They're good in every level of PvP. They're insanely used all the time in Legendary Arena for obvious reasons. They are a very strong theme. I still think Fantasy is the second best theme. Sci-Fi nipping at the heels. I still think Adventure is taking a further step back, and but they're very top heavy. They have some strong cards within the theme as far as Adventure is concerned, but I think Superheroes is in a better spot right now. Superheroes and adventure run rampant in other arenas. Like they're all over the place in bronze and all over the place in silver. But when you get to legendary arena, they'll at least superheroes will fall off a decent amount. But there's still that strength there. They're still good enough to play even at top 8K ladder as long as you have the right card levels. But I mean, like adventure to me is just so top heavy that then the rest of the cards kind of just to me don't really match up with the G tier cards in adventure. That the superheroes has more G tier level cards to me and is more overall a more balanced theme. Neutral is getting better, it's getting stronger, and they're adding a lot more cards to it. So neutral could be a stronger theme here in the future at the rate that Red Lynx is going with the amount of cards they're dumping into it. But I don't think it's anywhere to contend with some of these other themes right now, or I guess you could call it the main themes and everything. But that's pretty much it, guys, for what I think is kind of going on in the meta. There has been some changes, but not a ton. That's why I don't do these every month if I don't feel like there's been enough change within the meta, and I don't feel like there's been a huge dramatic shift. There has been a slight shift, but not a huge one to me. But what do you guys think? Do you guys agree, disagree with this video? I know a lot of you really enjoyed this series. I will continue it going forward here on the channel. It's not going to go away by any stretch, but it may be a quarterly thing going forward, maybe instead of monthly. I'll just have to kind of wade that out and see how I feel about it. But thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And as always, you're going to let me know down below how you feel, whether you agree or disagree with everything I have said in this video. But thank you guys again for watching. And until next time, guys, my name is Drewzy.